Well,
How do you spell I mean, I know how to spell interrogatory, but I tried to figure out how to spell erogatory and couldn't find it. Erogatory.
letter of erogatory is what one nation sends to another nation when someone has broken their laws.
Can I say something? So can I send this to the bar member that I have an issue with?
And it's 25 questions. You said 26, we can throw it out. Not even answer.
You can less than 25.
Yep. Most people can't think of 25. Shoot, I worked really hard on Fred Benz's, and I came up with 21 answers, 21 questions. It's hard to come up with 25.
But at that point, are you doing the presumptions of the court in that too? There's only 12, so that's 12.
But they have to be questions that can be answered. Okay? So what it is it's part of discovery. It's part of your discovery process. A letter of erogatory is part of discovery. What proof in truth, in fact, and evidence do you have that I? Say your question. They're really cool and a really good way to trap them into a corner by questions they can't answer.
And I was also told that someone else in the you're under the path is a special hearing. Is that true?
Sure. It's called the next friend.
Next
Or
one.
the friend of the court.
Procedures where I always fall apart. So I got to stop my ticket, okay? And same thing. Procedure. Order of
That's why you look at Bureau of Courts local rules in the Know Your Enemy section.
our authority notice. So this is
It's an error. It tells the court you're making critical errors. Don't make these critical errors. Okay.
so
Now,
you can do our court notice and fill out what critical errors you think you're making. Or
you do that in your quorum notice.
It's a
Yeah.
fact of truth and evidence. That's an affidavit then, correct?
Say that one more time.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
The fact of truth and evidence letter, is that comes after that? Is that an affidavit?
Yes.
Okay.
It's an affidavit of truth and facts.
Affidavit.
And what you want to do is you want to build a timeline of events. So at 4:01 p.m. on September 7th, a police officer named blah, blah, blah shows up at my house, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the questions he asked. This is how it was answered. He left. A week later, I get an email from Child Protective Services. Okay, so he left. He did his report. He turned it into Child Protective Services. Child Protective Services sends an email saying we want to come over and inspect your house. There's been a complaint or an allegation. Right? And you just keep track of every communication, every interaction, every time they show up at your house. You keep a running chronological order of the truth and the facts of what really happened. And you put them down in an affidavit. If it's an email, print it off, write exhibit number 1, and in your affidavit you say, I received this email on this date at this time. See attached exhibit number 1. The next time it's see attached exhibit number 2. On and on. You keep it all. And you just start building this case of truth. Because they're going to come in with their path of lies. And they're going to build up lies. You're going to build up a stack of truth. They're going to build up a stack of lies. And who's going to win? If you ever have to go to a higher court, the truth will prevail.
Okay, but I was also told that in the affidavits of truth and evidence, to keep them simple, because if one fact is found to be wrong, if they prove one fact wrong, the entire
No.
document is wrong.
No, in an affidavit, they must rebut point by point. That is the law. So if one's wrong, they can rebut one point. They can send you a letter that says, on your affidavit, item number 14.
Oh, I was told that it's all
Yes,
my
it is.
paralegal that's doing my affidavit that we're doing my affidavit
She's
right now.
wrong.
He.
Whatever. I'm gender
That's good
neutral
to
when it comes to that.
I know, I just had to say that. Okay.
Never know
So,
anymore.
is there,
Look at Michelle.
how do you
Big
know?
Adam's apple.
How would you know?
Huh?
Big Adam's apple.
Oh. Where can I find that? Is there
Oh, in about 100 places.
affidavits?
Westlaw, Justia, Cornell.
Okay.
You know, I had to do this,
Okay.
it's gonna be a migraine.
Cause he told me he would want to keep it really simple and not detailed, but very general. But if that's our facts. Okay.
Have you seen Michelle's 2020 running for president
Oh
picture?
no.
Look closely.
Yeah.
That's funny.
That's terrible.
Pretty funny. Not fun to talk about Michael. Anyway. Should we do lunch? Uh-huh. He was a pretty good football player in high school.
Well, somebody put out, there's $500,000 on the table if you could find a picture of a pregnant with those girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
What? Who doesn't have a picture of who's pregnant? Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
No hospital
That's pretty,
record.
that's
no-
pretty amazing. I mean,
You want your
Should have a red Sharpie, fine tip Sharpie, a purple pen, and then I like good old blood, so I just stick my finger.
He's a man.
Does anyone else want to write down their email address?
Yes. This says a spider on it.
Oh, yeah, that's his.
It says a spider.
Isn't that cute?
No.
It's Spider Company.
Yeah, it's a big ski
Love
brand
it.
company.
It's one of my favorite.
Like
They
North
make
Face.
the
I went to put
best.
my riding helmet on yesterday, and there was a wool spider this big right next to it. It got killed.
I've been bit by a
I had to
That
go
sucked.
get the broom because I could only kill a spider with a broom.
They're very poisonous, and you gotta go get this.
Do you guys have those in Colorado?
I got
We
bit.
got special
They're
stuff.
not native, they come
What
on
do you do with the
trucks.
special stuff?
I went to the hospital. I was young when it happened. I started necrotizing.
Pretty typical.
Can't you just use the red stamp?
Yeah, you can.
Well, all right.
I know. Just draw a little blood.
Give them a little blood. It's all blood they're gonna get. Is that what your point is?
My name is David Lester.
Oh, that's just your old person.
My mom gave me this name. My dad gave me that name because my dad's brother's name was this, and my mom thought I was a king.
Well, you were a king, right?
This is a familiar name.
Oh, what name?
It has nothing to
Familiar,
really
yeah.
do with you.
Family name, last name.
Colon in the front of your name gives your name importance. This joins your given names. This is a full stop colon. Says, hey, wait a minute. My name is David Lester. Stop. End of sentence. Familiar name. Give it importance. That's proper Parsi syntax grammar, how your name should be written.
What are the legal ways to change your name? Just doing the paperwork.
Legal ways to change your name.
Lawful ways.
Yes, I do.
I know how much does it cost? Is it like Like, let's say I don't want to be Laura anymore, but I want to use my middle name Catherine instead of Laura. Like, how much does it cost to like legally change your name? Yeah,
Would
does
you-
it legally cost?
Yes, that
Yeah,
depends
because
on
you
where
just
you're
don't
at.
want to legally. do
Every
it.
Like,
county's
so
gonna
county.
charge you something
Like,
else.
what county?
Oh, interesting, okay, so it goes by county.
Are you done with the
Every-
book? Ready?
everywhere you go.
Do
Right
the
now?
book to write down the email address?
States set those fees, they do whatever they want.
We just, that was a thumbprint that you drew on.
Yeah, yeah.
You did it.
Not a very good
You
artist.
did it at the stop. Did it matter?
As long as it touches your name. So you want it to touch your name, to become a part of your name.
Okay.
That means I, the band, living.
And then, was that semicolon period straight?
Yep.
Why?
Chicago Styles Manual.
Yeah.
Marcy's in News Grammar.
Okay, what's before the David again? What's
A colon. Full colon.
a full colon?
Full
To say
colon
it's important.
gives it importance. Full colon afterwards gives the whole thing importance. This is your name. This is your familiar name. You don't have any choice in that. It's hierarchy.
In your NP affidavit, or, yeah, NP affidavit, for the name, there was a semicolon in between the middle and the last, and there were 2 commas after, at the end?
Because you eventually learn more and more. I studied the Chicago Styles Manual probably 15 or 20 years. Then over time, I just kind of let it go. Because you're reading so much, you're researching so much, you just forget some things. Then I went back to the Chicago Style Manual. This is the proper way.
So should I change it in that?
Chicago style?
Hmm?
That's Chicago style.
Chicago Styles Manual. It's proper English.
So should I change it in that NP affidavit where my name is,
Books
make
which
it
go
like
to the
that
same
instead?
reference, Just like Black's Law.
Your NP, your Never Perfect affidavit, where you have put the name in, it had the semicolon in the middle.
If I wrote the whole thing over again today, I'd do this.
Okay,
Okay?
can you tell what was the significance of the 2 commas? Was there, or was that just an,
I didn't know it was two.
okay,
Get
because
that typo.
when I did mine, because I just printed it out the other day, I did only put 1 comma in, I took the 2 out, because I wasn't, since I didn't know what it was. Okay, thank you.
Also, I didn't think I did that. So, did you get that directly from me or did you get it?
I think I got it off Kirk's Law Group.
Okay.
Is that okay, or they shouldn't have? had it?
Sure. It just got handed down by somebody else.
I wasn't gonna use it without asking for permission.
Well, I don't care. It's out there. See, the thing about an affidavit is this. You have to make it your own. It is yours. You're swearing to it under the penalty of perjury. The minute you put your name on it, it's not mine, no matter what it is. It's yours. You better know what's in it, because you might get questioned on the stand of what's in it. You need to know what it says, what the words mean, every paragraph.
That's a lot of reading that 90-page
You know.
affidavit.
Yeah. What that was designed to do is be a last-ditch effort. When you've lost all hope, you file the Never Perfect affidavit. You've lost all hope. Because that comes into the court very strongly. And they look at that, and they may call it all kinds of things and try and underwrite it and stuff, but they read it. And people want you to understand something. Now they say, oh, we're not going to pay any attention to your documents. We're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. Don't kid yourself. They read every document that goes in that. And they do not want to admit certain things. So if you're told something that's true and honest about you, and you don't want to admit that, what do? You run over the top of it some way. You try and skate around it. You do whatever it takes not to admit it. That's what the court's doing with your documents. happens. We're calling the court out. We're calling the government out. We're calling the monetary system out. We're calling every bit of the fraud out in that 99-page document. Okay? They're not going to admit to it. They're going to, if they admitted to it, oh my God, they'd be open to some of the biggest lawsuits in the history of mankind, probably. But what it does is they read it and they go, holy crap, we got to do something. How can we get out of this corner? So.
I'm only have it printed, and I was instructed by Robert Doyle to only use it as a get out of jail free card. So that's the only reason I have it.
What?
My one phone call, if I get thrown in jail, will be to a friend that knows where it's at. She's to file it with the court, and they'll get me out of jail.
It's a last
That's
ditch
why. That's what I'm using it for.
It was.
So
I
I'm not-
designed it for parents that have been going for years. Their kids have been removed for years and years. They've tried everything. Nothing's working. They've been TPR'd. Now what do you do?
Don't you play bad?
Yeah, that's how I fight back. You
Yeah.
call out the fraud. You expose them. How do you expose them? There's 99 pages of exposure right there. Okay. If nothing else, learn it. Use it as a teaching and learning tool. There is so much knowledge in that 99 pages.
It's amazing.
I wrote a document several years back called A Never Perfect Affidavit. And the reason I named it that because for 4 or 5 years I just kept making it better, adding to it, changing it, making it better. And so that's why I consider it never perfect. It never will be perfect. You're always going to learn new things. If it's perfect, I'm dead. So, so it's literally 99 pages of education, calling them out for the fraud that they are. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you can learn so much. Just it ought to be taken out of affidavit form, a book. Make it a book. Yeah, put it on Amazon, sell it.
No, it's an amazing piece of work. It really is.
Well,
There's,
but then
there's
it
so much
probably-
education. I mean, that's why I could never present it on purpose to the court, because I don't have time to read all that stuff that you have in there to research it all to know where it comes from. But for an emergency, I'll use it.
Hundreds of places it came from. There is a ton.
Why do you call it last ditch? Why not every jab?
You've got to be able to represent. It's
Because if you use it first thing, they're gonna use it as, they're gonna hate you.
I see.
Yeah. So it's never designed to be a first and only document. It's designed,
It's the nuclear option.
it was,
Going
that's
one way or
right,
the other evidence.
absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. It was designed as a nuclear option. So notice of appearance is first. Okay. Error or crime notice, put them on notice that they're in the error. Doing your affidavit, your whatever derogatory. All those things can be done first. Heck, the most important thing we can learn is handle things before anything happens. You get a letter in the mail to your all caps name from somebody, get it taken care of within 72 hours. First, don't throw it on the fridge and forget about it, or put it in a drawer and forget about it, because then the problem just escalates. Pretty soon you're into it. You know, more people get in trouble by procrastination than they get by just handling something. Same with a ticket or anything else.
I come home to a ticket I've been gone for 3 months, and there's tickets all over my stuff, so what do you do then?
These tickets, while you were away, you got these tickets.
Yeah, seriously.
Then you do an affidavit that says, I arrived home on such and such a date to
Start the clock then.
start the clock then.
Great.
you know, you start the clock on the day you left.
Right, writing
And
that.
then we're-
I
yeah.
received a letter from, I was served actually, I was served a letter. It was basically a motion to hold things for court date. Can you do the same, do you have somebody to write a date, or somebody to write a
On every first notice. It's banking law. Okay. credit card company. Let's just say you got a credit card, right? Maybe you're 19. A lot of 19-year-olds do this. Got a credit card, you're 19 and had a $500 limit, right? All right, $500 limit. And you go out and spend some gas and some other things, and you run it up to a $200 balance. Then they send you your first invoice in the mail to your all cash name. You take the invoice, and you stick it on your fridge with a magnet, and you say, "I'll worry about that later when I get paid." And you forget about it. You open the fridge 500,000 times between now and then, and you can't seem to see that thing on your fridge. 30 days goes by, right? 30 days goes by, they send you past due notice. It's the same invoice, it just says no, it's past due, right? You got 15 days. You don't pay it within 15 days. You stick that past due notice on top of the other one on your fridge and you forget about it. You've done that before. Okay. They send you a default notice. They close your account, usually in 10 days. Now you got this $200 bill. You no longer have the credit limit. You have $240 on it now, right? And you're in default. You say, that sounds, screw you, I'm not paying it, right? So what do? What happens? You got 10 days to pay it. It goes to collections. Only if you know that, which nobody does at 19.
True.
Okay, so get out of that one. Okay, now it goes to collections. Collections starts the clock over 30 days. They follow up at 15. Then you have 10. And then they file for judgment. File for judgment.
Unless you have parents that pay for it. Because I did that stupid credit card crap, and my parents, which I feel was wrong on their part, they cleared the slate for me. They paid all my credit card debt, and then they started me from scratch.
Yeah, they should have dropped this lesson.
No, I think they should have make me learn the lesson. If
Right.
you have debt, pay it.
So anyway, this starts the clock over at 15, 10, then judgment. Now they can file a lien. They can file a lien on your house. They can file a lien at the county on your name, on your social security number. Okay? Whatever it is, they got a judgment. Now, in the beginning at the credit card, somewhere in here, before this first 30-day period, they sent you terms and conditions. You had 72 hours to refuse the terms and conditions.
Or alter them and change them. That did went in court. That guy, and the bank didn't even notice it, and then he had the 0% interest.
You can alter them and change them if they don't notice it.
0%.
They defaulted and you got it. But if they notice it, they can say that we're not going to do business with you. We're canceling your credit line. Okay, it's up to them. They can respond to your response. That is banking process. Well, guess what? Every court is a bank. Every judge is a banker. Got that Black's Law? You look up the word judge, it says see banker, see postmaster. You look up the word court, it says see bank, and see post office. All courts were set up as United States District Postal Courts. Benjamin Franklin set up the post office as a bank. All courts are banks. All courts are operating in commerce. All crimes are commerce since 1934. Even murder. It's a crime of commerce. You get the same thing going on. So, your first answer, they send you something, you answer. You've got 30 days to answer. You send them something, they got 30 days to answer. The second time, they got 15 days to answer. The third time, they got 10 days to answer. Now, an affidavit is going to be a little bit different. It's 21 days. A notice, an initial notice process is 21 days. That's why you got to publish things for 21 days. Okay? Affidavit, your first affidavit is 21 days. And treat all affidavits as 21 days. Now, other than that, there is nothing. That's how courts operate. There's only two things without statute of limitations. That's it. You can be 20 years into a life sentence, challenge jurisdiction, fraud, and prove it, and then you walk out the door. Go home. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you went through all that appeal process. One day you're sitting in prison and you wake up and said, holy crap, I just realized this was all fraud. The day you recognize fraud is the day the wheel falls off the wagon and avoids everything from the beginning. All you got to do is prove it. Challenge jurisdiction, expose the fraud, and get out of jail. Not that any of you are going to go to jail, right? Okay, but I'm not teaching it just for you. I'm teaching the teachers. You go out and teach everybody. Someday I'm going to get tired and go fishing. You guys got to take over. Yeah. So once you've got this basic process of how all bills work, what is an indictment? An indictment is a true bill. It says it right on every indictment. This is a true bill. How many people get an indictment and say, okay, how much is the bill? They don't. Nobody does. And if they did, the court clerk would scare the heck out of them because a penal sum might be $2 million. That's why they don't put the amount on the bill. Scare people. Okay? A true bill. It's an invoice. You don't ask how much, it doesn't say, and so you put it on the fridge and you forget about it. So they bring you up on charges. Can't pay the charges, you're asked to bond, can't pay the bond, your body's held a surety for the bond, and you're put in jail. Well, they collect on your Cestui trust and they pay off the debts for the commercial crime of commerce. Once you understand it's this simple, you start looking at everything a little bit differently. And that's the key, to look at this stuff differently. Most people get an indictment in the mail and they're crying, curled up in a corner in the fetal position, and they're wondering what they're going to do, and in the phone book looking for the best attorney they can afford, and they go on 2 or 3, free consultations, and they find out they can't afford any of them. Right. So, anyway.
So what do you do after the judgment? Let's say, for instance, I was told that I haven't dealt with it because I don't even remember taking a toll, and I was homeless when it happened, so then I kind of just, then I got this judgment, and then I was supposed to pay, but I didn't do that, there's no more collections, and then they canceled the
That was cool. They almost never cancel your driver's license. They always
Or
suspend.
suspended it,
Yeah.
that's what I meant.
The reason they suspend is so that you actually have one. It's just unusable.
Right.
When you have one, you're still in
Commerce.
commerce. You're still in contract.
So can I negate that? Can I get out of that?
Now you go get stopped, you get an additional fine.
But we're not giving them our driver's license anyway. We don't need our driver's license anyways,
You
right?
do not need it, but you can't just ignore it and leave it in suspension because it'll stay in suspension forever.
I thought it expired in 23.
And it can't expire. But
It has to be in good standing to expire.
it has to be, I was just gonna say that.
To get a new
It has to be in good standing to expire. Even then,
It's not expired.
it's on the books. It's like a marriage.
I have to.
Yeah.
You can get married, I can get married to somebody with a state, and I can get divorced. And as far as the state's concerned, I'm still married. That lives on in perpetuity. You have to annul a marriage to stop.
You might if
Yeah,
you're
to
an
Puerto
organ
Rico
donor,
where they keep the record.
if you're an organ donor on your
Yeah.
driver's license, once you always are. Wait a second, are you saying if we're divorced, if we haven't annulled it, we're not divorced?
You just changed your tax structure. You were never really married and you're never really divorced until you go to Puerto Rico and fix it. That's where they keep the records. And they'll mail him a 10-page document in Spanish, and that'll really freak him out.
We need to, yeah. We need to get
Do you want
together.
to go?
Huh?
Do you want to go? Puerto Rico, I've talked about it.
What?
I've talked about it.
Oh, I'll go. I'm on.
If you look at
I-
the United States,
I will.
if you look at the United States Patent and Trademark Office, states patented the marriage process. The blueprint of that patent is right there on the board. Real simple little blueprint. The state is the primary contract holder. It's at the top of the pyramid. They join with the husband. In other words, the state marries the husband. The state enjoins with the wife. There's no line connecting the husband and the wife. It's broken. A dashed line is a beam that bears no weight. They put God's name on the beam that bears no weight. It bears no weight in the contract. They took God out of the picture. You married the state.
Oh my gosh.
So when they deal with things, it deals with everything through the state when you deal with your wife. Shook his head, grinning ear to ear. Yeah. Yeah. I think I sent you the marriage thing. Just this morning. Give away a check. Sure.
Sorry.
Were you leaning on your
I
chair?
was trying to wean. I didn't make it.
She's a leaner.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, turn. All right. An enlightening conversation with the Marriage Bureau. Huh? Yeah. About 20 years ago, my former wife filed for divorce. We had 7 children, 5 daughters, 2 sons, our youngest at the time. Our second son was 5 years old. At the time, I prepared a counterclaim to the petition for dissolution her attorney filed in domestic relations court. I met one afternoon with the head of the Maricopa County Superior Court Marriage License Bureau in downtown Phoenix. The Marriage License Bureau was headed by a young woman of about age 25. I asked her to explain to me the general and statutory implications of the marriage license. She was very cooperative and called in an assistant, a tall black man who at the time was working on an operations manual for the internal department use of the agency. She deferred for most technical explanations to her assistant. He walked through the technicalities of the marriage license as it operates in Arizona. He mentioned that marriage licensing is pretty much the same in the other states, but there are a few minor differences. One significant difference he mentioned was that Arizona is one of 8 western states that are community property states. The other states are common law states, like Utah, with the exception of Louisiana, which is a Napoleonic Code state. Okay. He then explained some of the technicalities of the marriage license. He said, first of all, the marriage license is a secular contract between the parties and the state. The state is the principal party in that secular contract. The husband and wife are secondary or inferior parties. The secular contract is a 3-way contract between the state as principal and the husband, and the wife as the other 2 legs of the contract. He said in the traditional sense, marriage is a covenant between the husband and wife and God, but in the secular contract with the state, reference to God is on a dotted line and not officially considered included in the secular contract at all. He said that if the husband and wife wish to include God as a party in their marriage, that is a dotted line they will have to add in their own minds. The state's marriage license is strictly secular. He said further that what he meant by the relationship to God being a dotted line meant that the state regards any mention of God as irrelevant, even meaningless in its description of the marriage license contract. The related one to the other is a dotted line, which is saying there's no direct line between the husband and wife. Okay. Anyway, I'm not going to read this whole thing. You guys can read it later, but this is right in the United States Patent and Trademark Office as a blueprint to the marriage license. So in my talks, my training classes, I teach people the proper way to get married. For about $40 online, you can buy a family Bible, and it's got some blank pages in the front. They all say Holy Bible at the top. There's a whole bunch of lines on these blank pages. You create the event, the date, the time, the place, who officiated it, the husband and wife's name, and I don't use the term husband and wife, but mate and helpmate.
I like
Mate
that.
and helpmate. And then you get 3 witnesses to sign it. You take that and you go record it. You take a picture of it, sign a little affidavit. We got married this time in this place. Via the Bible between us and God. You go record it on the land. Now the state of Alabama heard one of my presentations that I gave to the 10th Amendment Society down there. And it went before the legislature. And the lawmakers eliminated marriage license for the state of Alabama.
Wow. Huh.
They removed them all last year.
Huh.
And now they tell you to go get married in the Bible and bring it to a probate judge. The probate judge will make sure all the documentation is filled out properly recorded. And the state of Alabama no longer issues marriage licenses. Okay? Very simple things. These are things we all should be doing. We can,
Okay, my family is raised Jewish, so I guess I
doesn't have to be the Holy Bible.
Okay.
There's freedom of religion in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I hate to say it, I fought for that. You can use the Quran if you want. Offer people's right to choose. But we were a Christian nation, founded on Christian principles, and the Jewish Bible is just as Christian, or more so than any other Bible. Okay? So, don't tell people how to practice their own religion. It's up to them. So, done. Proper way to get married. Every 15, 16, and 17-year-old on earth needs to be taught this right here. Just this little, this is it. What I challenge you guys to do is develop little 5-minute napkin presentations, I call them. So I'm going to tell you what that means. December of 1988, I sold an advertising agency that I had started, and I started a financial planning firm. Securities license, mortgage license, insurance license. I mean, I had it all. And I did it big. I went out, I rented a whole entire floor, second floor of this huge office building in a cruiseway in Portland, Lake Oswego, which is the financial district of the West. And I hired over 100 salespeople. And I said, a great way to get started in sales is to sell mutual funds. They're easy to sell. All these salespeople went out and they were having a hard time selling it, a hard time making their commissions and the money they need to live on. So I developed a 10-minute napkin presentation. And basically, this 10-minute napkin presentation basically showed how you, a husband and wife, can bypass these middlemen, go directly into the American economy and invest their money. And instead of making 5% with these guys, back then that was about average, now it's 0.25%. You can take your money and go right around directly into the American economy through a mutual fund company, which automatically diversifies your money into the American economy. And you can make 10 to 15% rate of return. How's that sound to you? I could give that presentation to a husband and wife in a restaurant. And I was selling hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of mutual funds within a month. I developed a napkin presentation. And I taught all 100 of my salespeople. And we sold so many mutual funds out of that office that we got the attention of Sanford Weill. Do you know who Sandy Weill is? He's the guy that started Shears Lehman with $40,000 of borrowed money. He sold it 7 years later to American Express for $1 billion. And then he became the CEO of American Express as part of the deal. Then he became the CEO of Citibank, Primerica, many mutual fund companies. The list of mutual fund companies is really long. And I sold so much it got his attention, and he flew out in his private 707. How many people have a private Boeing 707? Yeah, that's about it. Okay, not very many. And he picks me up and he flies me to New York City and he puts me up in the Waldorf Astoria. And every day for about 4 days, a limo would come pick me up, take me to a recording studio, over and over and over again until we got it perfect. And I was a 26-year-old kid. I got that napkin presentation down. And they used it to train Citibank employees for years. In fact, a gal I went to high school with, living in Orlando, Florida, called me just about 5 or 6 years ago and said, David, I had no idea you even did this. But I just watched a video, Citibank training video, of you doing a presentation on how to sell mutual funds. So from 1980, I think it was 1990 when I did that Citibank thing, till 6 years ago. They'd been using it that long. That freaked me out. The other thing he did is right when I was done with that presentation in New York, he says, have you ever gone to a National Association of Financial Planners convention? I said, no, I didn't even know they had such a thing. I was a 26-year-old kid, I didn't know anything. He goes, I'd like you to speak at it and do your napkin presentation. And I said, okay, what is it? He says, well, we're going to leave right now. And he puts me on his 707 and flies me to the Tacoma Dome. And when I walk up on stage to give this presentation, and my face, turn around, there's my face on a TV screen 40 feet tall. So they could see it in the nosebleed sections. And it was in front of 40,000 people. That's the scariest thing I've ever seen for a 26-year-old kid to do. Well, he gave me 30 minutes to do it. I had 30-minute slot to fill. And that's done in 15. Now what do I talk about? I had no idea. I had to
Did you talk?
make shit.
Just repeat it to make
You
sure
learned
you
quick,
understood
huh?
what it
You
was.
got to understand, that was my first public speaking appearance. Really, in front of a group.
What a way to start.
Other than in church, you know. I have to get up and give a talk in church when I was little. That was my first public. I failed speech in high school.
Fail.
Yeah, I failed speech. It was my first F in the history of my school year, school life. It was my first F because I hated getting up in front of a group so bad. And here I am standing at this podium with me looking over my shoulder.
God.
Yeah, it was weird. Really weird.
That's what I do for a living.
So anyway, what I'm saying with this story is develop little napkin presentations that you can sit down with somebody and teach them. You can sit down with a 16-year-old and draw this out and explain it just like I did and show them the proper way to get married. What would happen in the United States if the vast majority of people getting married weren't getting a marriage license?
Their taxes.
What kind of changes would that make? Huge changes.
We're telling the state that they're not involved in it.
That's right.
You're not involved.
So take every little aspect of this business of learning and create a little simple, your own napkin presentation that you can give in 10 or 15 minutes. And this is how you can teach people, especially the young people that need it. I mean, look at all of us in here over 40. Except for me, you. You're not 40 yet, are you? Anyway. You see what I mean? Why don't we have a bunch of 15, 16-year-olds in this room?
They don't listen.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Because
They don't care
they
'cause
were
they have
brainwashed by
presented the
Obama
right
TV.
way.
Exactly. They've been indoctrination.
But if you're 15 or 16 years old, you just brought your boyfriend home for the first time to your parents,
Be willing to listen.
and the parents sat down with you and said, if you guys ever plan to get married, and I hope they don't do that on the first time they bring them home, but if you ever plan on getting married, here's how it really works, and here's how it should be. What do you think?
I think we'll do that how they should work, because I feel that most people do not want to first year.
And
They
see
don't want
deception.
what?
People like to be deceived. If you feel that there's a deception, it's instantly unpalatable.
See, Anna Bonner writes when she wrote her first book, I thought she was brilliant, because the name of her book was, You Know Something Is Wrong When, ... And she wrote it designed to teach children. That's why it's fully, full of drawings, right? You know something is wrong when, I think everybody feels that. Everybody knows there's something wrong. They just don't know what it is. They can't put their finger on it.
Tino Speaks, he wrote The Truth, the Whole Truth, and Nothing But the Truth. That, I think, is the best little handout.
Great
book. Knock it out of the park. Yes.
Yeah, great book. And there's many of them. A lot of guys have done it. But if you can develop something that you can, in a restaurant, on the back of a napkin, or on the back of a table placemat. I had a couple come down who had just lost their kids up in Washington State. And they drove all the way to Bend. I didn't even know they were coming. They called me up at 9 o'clock in the morning and said, David, are you in Bend? And I said, yeah. And they said, well, we're in Bend too. We're just visiting our kids. You got any time to meet? I really didn't. But they said, we drove all the way down from Washington to see you. I'd like to meet with you. So I said, all right, I'll make some time for you between 11 and 3. We went to Black Bear Diner restaurant. Black Bear Diner has those paper placemats, you know, that go under your plates. On 3 of those placemats, in 3 hours, I taught them a whole bunch of stuff just like this. The very basics of law, what's going on, how to do it, what documents to file. I sat there with my iPad and sent them emails right from there of the different documents that they could go home and change. And about a month later, they called me up and said, David, we want our kids back. Thank you. If we can get good enough to do that over and over and over again, think of how many people we can help. It's just developing these little tiny things, these little napkin presentations. Do one on marriage, do one on birth certificate, you know, do one on traffic tickets, do one on whatever. The majority of people get in trouble for the first time. Their first event with the law is a traffic of some kind. So go through and develop these little presentations that can teach people these dumb little drawings and things. And get good at it. And then you can teach everybody else. And that's what's important. It's not just about us in the room learning it. It's about making it teachable, quickly teachable. Because you can only teach so many people. But if I can teach 100 people, and those 100 can go out and teach 100 each, and they can teach 100 each, now pretty soon we woke up a nation. So, yeah, that's the goal. We got less than 1,300 days left. And really, that's all we have. I never would have thought that 10 years ago. But I've studied enough to know that I've seen things come true over and over and over again that were written in the Bible. So how shall I not believe that? I can't justify not believing that. So, but it's really quite simple. If I can do it on this pad up here in front of the group, you guys can do it on an napkin.
And make a book out of it.
What's that?
And then make a book out of it.
That's what we want.
Everybody asks me, how come you don't write a book? Well, because I can't sit long enough to write a book.
You can dictate.
I have a son who's a writer, and I've asked him to write a book about it. And I was hoping he'd learn while he's writing the book, you know, but he can't find time to write the book either.
A couple really good ones out there, really solid summaries.
Yeah, there is. There is.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be like an audio YouTube. Like you have a book that has all the stuff in it.
I know everybody learns
We're
different
making it
ways.
harder.
I'll tell you what, you tell me something, I'm going to forget it in half an hour. You know, I read it, I'll remember it for life. Yeah.
I have to have all of it. I have to have it in my
So-
hands. It has to be in a frame. I have to read it, hear it, taste it.
And it's true, everybody has a different method of learning.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really simple. These little things are really simple. Presumption, assumption, task agreement, hearsay. wanted to repeat them over and over, teach people. So, what do you need help with? Ask the question.
How do I know my driver's license after having that issue? Was my first.
Go in and rescind the contract. Yeah.
Polly did it, and it was hard. They put it in the computer every way except cancel. And he had to stay on them and stay on them and stay on them and stay on them.
And every state's going to be different.
Yeah.
You know, the state of Texas actually issues an American state national license plate.
Yeah.
And very few people even know that. For an American state national.
So you can buy it.
It's an actual state issued plate. And it never has to be renewed, never have to buy tags, anything. Every state is supposed to. Under the U.S. Department of Transportation guidelines, Regulation Z, all states are supposed to provide us with a republic form of government and a sovereign plate. Oregon has them. Oregon lists it on their website, and they say you can get it here, here, and here. 3 locations. All 3 locations are in Salem, which is the capital city of Oregon. One is the main office of the state's Department of Motor Vehicles division. I called somebody that I knew, that I went to high school with, that worked there in that office for 35 years and just retired. She'd never heard of it. In fact, she went off on me. There's no such thing. Swore up and down. I said, I just got it off your website. It says to contact one of these 3 places. Here it is. I sent her a screenshot of the website. She goes, 35 years I was there, never heard of such a thing, never seen one. Don't know anything about it. But you're right, it's right here on our website. So I call the next one. The next one is an Oregon Department of Transportation website, or location, whatever you want to call it. And he said, you know, I've been here about 20 years, and I remember seeing a couple of those plates up on a shelf somewhere. I could see if I could find them. I could see if I could find them. I said, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. See if you can find one. And here's my phone number. Call me back. 2 days later, he calls me back. Sorry, buddy. I couldn't find one. Couldn't find it anywhere. The other one was a Department of Transportation's website. They say, yeah, we got the machinery and everything to make one of those, but I don't think we've fired it up in 15 or 20 years. I'm not sure I know how. Did you get into it? No. He gave me somebody else to talk to. And they gave me somebody else to talk to. And they gave me somebody else to talk to. And I said, screw this, we ought to just sue the state of Oregon and make them do it. Just haven't done it yet.
What they call Illinois, they transfer
Yeah, Regulation Z plates. The U.S. Department of Transportation says states are required to issue Reg Z plates.
There's a lot of people that do them in the private market that sell them for this purpose, but then you've got to know what you're doing to back it up, you know.
Yeah, because a lot of them get arrested that put it on their cars.
Well, they just slap it on and think I'm done, you know. There's more to it.
Yeah, it's called the MSO and the MCO.
Right.
Question.
Yeah. Well, did you just ask if there were questions at this point? Because I want to go back some.
Yes, we go back some. I don't care.
Okay. And forgive me, Al, but this didn't stick. I'm not that bright, so. Notice of appearance. Our ARACORN notice and our notice of service. I understand what they are. I don't understand their application, and I don't understand their content.
No, you'd have to see it to understand it.
Okay.
Your notice of appearance is telling the court how who you are and what you are and how you're going to be. That you're here by special appearance, not general appearance. That you're a man, a living soul. That's an American state national. You're not a citizen, person, or resident. Essentially, that's what a notice of appearance is. Okay? It says, yeah, I'll show up in court to settle this matter, but only under these conditions. That's what it is.
wait for a response.
Wait for a response.
And they'll say a date, judge date, basically.
Sometimes just on a notice of appearance, they remove your court date. It's not worth their effort.
Right.
Yeah. Sometimes
As
it's
soon as they 10th time in there, I'm sure they give up on the whole project.
eventually they do give up, and then you're truly free. Then you drive down the road, you're talking on your cell phone and not putting your turn signals on, and pretty soon, you know, all the cops are just leaving you alone, waving at you.
That's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. And for the not serious part, but like the silly tickets we were talking about, you were talking about dismissing the way that you were talking about the game.
So 72-hour thing.
You know, in the 72 hours, what's your response after silly tickets?
So what's that?
So what's the standard operating procedure for silly tickets? Like I did with that registration ticket.
I just write, your offer to contract is not accepted.
Right.
And maybe if you're actually traveling, well, traveling in private automobile, even if you're parking in the parking lot, you're not traveling. You're still traveling.
Sure.
If it's involving your vehicle.
So refuse the contract is the ticket method.
Yes.
Yeah.
Title 18, Section 242, you're operating under the color of law.
Yes.
See? Once you do that, they go, they know they're operating in color of law. If you want to have fun, go see your county attorney. Say, Mr. County Attorney, my name is Dave Doyle. I've done this with him many times. I like Dave.
Wait, what did you just say to tell him?
I sat down with Dave Doyle and I spent about 3 hours going through this stuff with him. And I says, how do you guys feel about that? And he says, honestly, I'm just biding my time until I can retire. That's what he told me. Yeah, I'm just biding my time until I can retire.
He doesn't want to mess with and he can't position it to stay shut.
Yeah. So I said, well, how many color of law lawsuits do you get? And he says, I don't know, about 40% of all the lawsuits Deschutes County gets are color of law lawsuits. I said, good, I've been teaching the people.
That's awesome.
40% of all the lawsuits Deschutes County gets are color of law lawsuits.
Wait, they are color of law, or 40% people are calling them out on it?
Well, that's what it is. That's a color
So
of
people
law
are
lawsuit
calling them out on
is calling them
40%
out.
in your county.
Yeah,
Good
in
job.
my county.
Wow.
So that's what we got to get to.
Every county.
Now we got a couple of brand new judges that are just pure hell on wheels. You know,
That's too bad for them.
This stuff doesn't stop.
got to do it all over again. What's that?
Well, who would have elected them? Who would have voted them in? If there's 40% of the people, how did those judges get in?
This is ridiculous.
Good point.
I don't know. Judges seem to get into office and they seem to run unopposed. You know.
People are still blind to that.
Yeah.
So if I were to run, but then I have to be an employee.
You remember when I stood
Yeah.
here and I said, as an American State National, when you step into office, you're a state citizen. Okay? Citizen is an employee of government.
Which means
Bob
then you have
Thornton
to,
was like swim in both waters. Was the goal.
That's why I teach the 3 jurisdictions. What is the law? Who has dominion? Me. When I can walk between jurisdictions, back and forth whenever I want to, and not end up in jail, that's how you know you're free. All these patriot groups, man, they want out of admiralty and they want to jump into common law with both feet. God only give you one jurisdiction. See? That's what I tell them.
no, but if we have dominion, then why do we have to get on the ship if they want to be bullies to us? Why do we have to? Why can't we say, no, don't bully me, I'm not getting on your ship?
You don't.
That's what he's teaching.
The answer to that is you don't. The other answer to that is They've been getting away with it for 150 years.
So this way, we need to fight. We just need to go on their ship and just like take them out.
We
Okay.
have to correct the errors our public servants are
Okay.
making
The only way to do that is to get on their ship and let them out.
and educate them so they never do it again.
I
Gotta
agree.
go
I
on.
say educate them, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta get on board and educate them. That's
Okay.
why I say that's our only 2 jobs. The rest of the time we can be fishing. Okay.
From their ship.
Unfortunately, it's a full-time job.
From their ship.
You have to. There's no other way. There's no other
You
way.
can't scream it from your ship, they're not listening.
Anyone, this is one of the big reasons for the terminology that's being misused, sovereign citizen. Is because those guys that are practicing sovereign citizen baloney is because they are not calling them out on their own ship. Once they call them out on their own ship, then they're free. They have dominion.
So who are these sovereign citizen people? What are they doing? What's their
Lots
point?
of people that learned about this
Is
much
this
of what I
way
know.
to make people like they're like Obama wanted, make people think they're sovereign and free, but they're really not. He's still
We
got to
are
work by
all
citizen.
sovereign when we follow the steps I've taught you in this class.
Right.
And you've done the proper documentation, you got the proper paperwork, and you learn how to walk between jurisdictions. You're a sovereign. You're as good as a king.
But what's the sovereign citizen?
The term was invented just like
Who invented
conspiracy theorist.
Yes.
It was something to put on you and instantly dismiss anything that comes out of your mouth next. So when a cop says, "Are you a sovereign citizen?"
I say, are you a moron?
Yeah, like you can't be a sovereign
Oh, so it's to
citizen.
make us
Like,
sound like a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a, it
When
was a,
it doesn't mean
it's a
anything
created
anyways
title
because it's citizen.
to
Okay.
dismiss you right away.
Okay.
If you think about it, you can't be sovereign and a citizen.
Exactly. So I'd say, no,
The
I'm
one
not a
that
sovereign
created
citizen.
that
I'm a
word
sovereign
called
people.
sovereign
You're
CIA.
human.
Living, breathing
I mean,
human.
that's what I was told.
And
The
conspiracy
FBI that
theory.
wrote that
Creepy
term,
soul,
sovereign
It was the Federal Bureau of Investigation that coined the phrase. It
Um,
was.
And then the judges and all of them like, oh, well, FBI says it, so it's a term. No, it's
Hey, they walk in there with the suits, the power, and the authority, and they're taught. They're taught how to walk, talk, and act.
bullshit.
Okay?
If you use that term, they're like, "Oh, well, great, you're pointing yourself out for me." They know them by their limping.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything. I always think of the movie Men in Black when I think of FBI. Don't those guys, fight the aliens, look like FBI agents, all dressed pristine?
Right.
God, we got on the subject. I have no idea where I was going.
I'm full anyway.
What's
You asked
that?
the last question.
You do full from lunch anyway.
And that's the problem with small groups. With big groups, we can say, hold your questions till after. I can get up there and I can do the whole thing, rattle it all out. But when I get interrupted a lot, then it goes.
I think, was it a sovereign citizen question that he asked?
That you were going to go on board.
What was it?
The last question that was asked was.
Oh no, I was doing the question was the notice of service and notice of appearance.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
Chrissy asked
What-
about suing, and then he said to make a claim and then do an affidavit.
Okay, that's what it was. Thank you,
Yes.
hon.
Good job.
I write everything down.
My name, claim, Bob Smith, whoever he is, trespassed
Vic, you wanted to say something while I was standing up?
against me. And then you just, small explanation of how he trespassed against me. He stole my kids. He showed up at my house, kicked my door in, took my 2 kids, and he left. Therefore, he committed kidnapping. And you could come up with a whole list of crimes out of the United States Code that he committed. Probably 130 felonies or more. They carry $250,000 fines for each count and up to 10 years in prison for each count.
I got that whole list.
And there's more than that, probably. There's hundreds. If you read the entire United States Code, you could come up with hundreds of crimes that our public servants commit against us, trying to get us for a misdemeanor. And they're committing hundreds of felonies to do it. But we don't hold them accountable. So this is how you hold them accountable. And you just keep it simple. When you file the initial claim, then you could go in and expand on it. But you just get the initial claim file. It's a one-page claim document explaining a little bit about what he did, calling for a grand jury or a prosecutor to prosecute. So you list the crimes, you call
Why or prosecuted?
for
Because they can.
prosecution. Now, why?
Grand jury's a bit, right?
No,
Trial.
grand jury is a bunch of local folks that, here's one of the problems with our justice system in America today, is that the prosecutor runs the grand jury. No defense evidence is heard, no defense witnesses is heard. The prosecutor goes in front of the grand jury and says, I think we got enough evidence to convict this guy. Here it is, what do you think? The grand jury says, that looks like you got a case there. They sign off on it. You get an indictment. Not a bit of defense evidence is there at all to prove that you're innocent. They just walk all over the grand jury. Therefore, the grand jury will indict a ham sandwich as the prosecutor tells them to. Then somebody gets a warrant, an indictment, gets a warrant for their arrest, gets picked up, they get thrown in jail. Maybe it's 2, 3, 4, 5 months, sometimes a year before they even get to a trial. And they've lost their job, they've lost their home, they've lost their family, they've lost their wife, their cars have been repossessed because they didn't make the payments for 3 months. On and on and on. Their life just gets absolutely destroyed. Then they go to trial, and the guy stands up there and he says, Judge, where's my intent to commit a crime? Where's my first-hand witnesses? I'm here by special appearance. He does everything right, and he's found innocent, and he gets to walk out the door. So what?
Yeah.
Right, what's the remedy?
So what?
And why can't he do that in the beginning when in front of the grand jury? Why doesn't he get to state his case? I don't understand.
Because that's one of the problems ever since we became an administrative court process, 1934, is grand juries
Okay,
aren't
so-
public.
It's how you say jury trial. You want, right? There's two different ways.
You want a trial by jury, not a jury trial. Okay? A trial by jury means when the jury is done making their decision, it's final. All the judge does is sentence. He's a disinterested third party. But a jury trial, the jury can deliberate, make a decision, the judge can override it. Okay?
But
Call
wouldn't
for-
he be judging from the bench then at that point if he's overriding the rule?
I don't understand why that guy went to
Hold-
jail.
hold
What's
on a
the
minute.
grand jury? What's,
Let's stick with this for just a second.
okay.
You call for prosecution. What happens is the prosecutor says, I don't think we have enough to prosecute. We don't want it. We don't want to prosecute. It's up to them. They can make that decision if they want. Well, now here's where the United States Code becomes your friend again. Because if you give the government an opportunity to prosecute, you call for prosecution, and they say no, now you can do it yourself.
Huh.
You become the prosecutor. You call your court. But you have to give them the opportunity first to prosecute on your behalf. That's a real key right here in holding these guys accountable. It's that simple.
So you state the claim with the courts, in their courts, you file a motion.
First thing you gotta do is bring a claim, then an affidavit of truth and facts, timeline of what went on, how did Bob Smith hurt you and trespass against you. Your affidavit follows up your claim. Your claim is just a one-piece document. It says, I, David Strain, claim Bob Smith trespassed against me. He committed this crime, this crime, this crime, this crime, and this crime. will you please prosecute? I'm prepared for trial. Something like that.
What if they
Done.
refuse to prosecute and then you do the same exact thing against the prosecutor, showing how he trespassed against you? Now he's got a problem too.
If they refuse to prosecute, the United States Code says you can prosecute. So now you call your own court. In front of the court clerk, you demand your own court. They supply to the judge. You're the prosecutor. You
But
get
you
Bob
still-
Smith up on the stand. You get your
But they
witnesses
still get
up
the
on
judge to
stand.
make the decision.
Huh?
They still get the judge to make the decision.
You could call it a trial by jury.
I just,
It's your courthouse. It's your building.
I thought the trial, I thought the jury was only for the defendant, so when the defendant could call for the jury, instead of you know, the
Right.
prosecutor,
Yeah,
you know, trying to say, yeah, let's do a jury trial. Wouldn't they say, no, we don't want a jury?
you're right, if you're
That's
the
right. But
prosecutor, it's better to have the
if
judge.
you make a suggestion, almost always the defendant will go
Okay.
for it. He just goes along with it.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So you could call for arbitration if you wanted to. You can
That's
do
what I was
whatever you
saying,
want
why
at that point.
arbitrate?
It's
I've heard of that.
yours.
I've heard of
Yeah.
that way too.
So, but
Prosecution's
you
nice.
first have to make a claim. I'm boring you. You didn't get much sleep. So anyway, what's next?